back where you can hear me. My mic wasn't working there for a moment, but yeah, welcome to episode 10 of JagaVision. Really good to be back here for our 10th episode. Excited that as of the last time that we spoke, we got to 100 plus subscribers. So the strategy's working. we're getting more and more people to join in. So that's really exciting to hear and to see. So continue to spread the word. The more people we can share these videos with, the better. We'd love to share our perspectives on tea, our guest perspectives on tea, and on different issues. Today, it's going to be a really fun episode. We're going to have Brownie joining us. I know last week I was telling you that we'd have another guest on, but they were not able to join us, and we had Brownie scheduled for a later session, and he graciously agreed to bump up his appearance. So I'm excited to have him on the show. He'll be joining us at 1:20. Sister Speak, Sherri Anne will also be joining us at 1:20. We're going to be doing today's session focused on kombucha. Brownie actually was instrumental in the foundation of the program. It would not have happened without his involvement. So really excited to have him on and talk about that. He worked for us for quite some time, and who knows, may work for us again. We'll see how it goes. But at the moment, he's taken some leave and actually in Vancouver right now after a trip around the world. So we'll see what happens in the future. But regardless, excited to have him. Today, though, I've been often talking about the pandemic a lot. Recent events in the United States have kind of almost definitely overshadowed it. I think that the marches that we're seeing and the intensity that we're seeing in response to the lynching of George Floyd has been pretty intense to watch. And I think that it's a really important and powerful thing that's happening right now. So just wanting to honor that a bit, and not quite sure the best way to do that. So just loving to hear from people. I know that there's going to be some education sessions that I'll be joining. I think that's a really important part of the puzzle, and I'm really grateful for the ability that we have to communicate outside of more mainstream control over the conversation, so that we can perhaps have a chance to have real, sincere conversations that need to happen. And it really brings up a lot of the intensity that we experienced before COVID, where there was the Wet'suwet'en blockades, and that whole process is still playing out in northern BC. I think that the blockades kind of went and stopped happening due to COVID, and I think that what's happening in the United States is just showing how, even with the fear of death via virus, people are going out and protesting and putting literally their lives on the line, and I guess potentially impacting others as well. But it's so important, and it's such a horrific situation that exists for the everyday, and this has just kind of brought it up to the forefront. And I think perhaps in a place of introspection that we've all been in, this is the moment where we can perhaps move forward a little bit, or a lot would be amazing, in dealing with colonial culture and the challenges that it poses. Seems a little bit forced to go on and make tea while I'm talking about this, but for my part, I actually find it quite therapeutic. So that's what I'm going to do. Actually drinking a tea like I do that I haven't had before, so very interested in this one. It's been sent to me as a the farmer has called it a 4 Seasons oolong. Not as familiar with this particular oolong. I've asked for some more information on it, so today is going to be very sensory, as I don't have a lot of data. I just know that it's Chinese. this at home. Unless you've washed your hands like I have. 7 point. Get that out of the way. Let's get that more accurate. 8 grams. Excellent. Okay. We're going to do 240 grams of tea. Sorry, 8 grams of tea and 240 grams of water. I'm going to do my usual minute and 30. Leaves look nice and tight. The stems are still attached. Those are often removed by hand at origin. It doesn't necessarily drop the quality of the tea, but you probably want to note that that will affect your dosing, because you're going to have to dose a little bit more to get similar saturation of the leaf content. It can often mean that the price you're paying is a little bit less, and this is a little bit cheaper than some samples we've had from different purveyors of a similar style. So just goes to show that perhaps that's actually a good idea, because if you're willing to make adjustments for the stems, then why not get a slightly cheaper tea? So I'm assuming though that this is going to be a little bit watery, because I've made it similar to how I would if there was not, if the stems had not been left in place. Yeah, it looks really pretty. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it looks like. Looks pretty tight, perhaps not extracting as quickly as we would normally expect. So expecting quite a thin extraction just from the appearance in the pot here. Liquid color though doesn't look that bad. Some parched greens have this more subdued color. The aromatic on the liquid, not terribly fragrant. The leaves smell really good. Let's see. Smells like honey and grass. That's really, you know, I'm the only one here. I'm going to cheat here and just see what happens. Just going to take it for an extra 30 seconds. This is not legit. I'm totally cheating. And that's okay. This will give me a sense. Sometimes when I notice that it's very, very weak and I'm definitely not going to enjoy the cup, I'll make the decision to see what an extra 30 seconds tastes like. The problem and why this isn't okay is that I've lost thermal consistency, and therefore my extraction is not necessarily going to be, say if I did a minute and a half and now I've done another 30 seconds, that doesn't mean that my final settings will be 2 minutes. It'll probably be somewhere between a minute and a half and 2 minutes. Maybe a minute 45. We'll see. A little bit nicer color. Yeah, now I actually have aromatics. Very spicy. Yeah, it's a little bit nicer. Yeah. Still a little on the thin side. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have a dose a little bit more, likely because of those stems. Pretty good. Yeah, it's oftentimes the Four Seasons oolongs. I said this is the first time I've had this particular one. So this style, it's this style often requires this particular setting, but you know, it's good to experiment. You know what I've done here, and why it's so weak, I think, is actually because I brewed with 80 degrees centigrade water. Now that I think about it, I was cupping some parched greens, and that's generally what I brew with when I'm doing parched greens. But as an oolong, I would normally do 90 degrees C. So I'm going to redo this tea at 90 degrees centigrade. I got to start from the beginning. Put that off to the side. Let's see what happens. Okay. Do another 8 grams here. Keep doing this. I'm terrible. We'll go with 7.7 grams. Okay. Turn up my temperature to 90 degrees. Not a lot of water in there right now. So fill up the pot here. Yeah, and kind of apologies to my viewers, or our viewers. I'm not not in a super happy place, just because just kind of been thinking about all those what is possible for interacting with what's going on right now. I think that positivity is not necessarily something we need to be embracing, but I think that there is, I think once you kind of deal with some of the tougher questions you need to ask yourself, I think that there is a place for you to move forward. I think when I was first interacting with the Wet'suwet'en crisis, I was unsure the best way to sort of respond, and I think that what's important is to be authentic and to have a space inside of yourself to be able to interact with it and just say what's on your mind. So during that crisis was just kind of watching some of the protests. Wasn't sure if it was my place to actually walk with people, and I think that's a question we all got to ask ourselves. For my part, got involved in calling government, trying to get city to be involved in supporting the Wet'suwet'en, encouraging Green Party intervention or NDP intervention locally. But I think there's a lot of shared. It's beyond politics. I think that as a society, we all want to be in a place where we don't have to feel separated from law enforcement, where we can be like, I have some very good friends who are police officers and who challenge the idea that they have to be these I guess always stepping out of line, etc. Really good people. So I had always sort of had an issue with authority when it came to government and police, etc. I just my inner rebel. But I think it was interesting for me to have to deal with some friends becoming officers and what that meant. So yeah, I don't know. We're all human beings, and being human is, I guess, being part of a chaotic existence, and there's no real true answers, but hopefully we can keep some love strong and we can interact with it out of a place of kindness and compassion and trying to understand. So water is ready. 1.5 minutes. Going on to 240 for my 8 grams. I was a little under 8 grams. I was at 7.7, so I'm going to not use quite 240. I'm going to get closer to 230. There we go. Okay. And then I will get out another decanter. And we'll be off to the races. See how that goes. Some exciting things happening in the background here. We've been having an opportunity to improve on our brewing program, which has been really awesome. We've been able to install actually a DIY bottle filler, which is pretty cool, and excited about how that's working out. And
hello.
Like our guest has joined us. Okay. So this is Jared Brownie. Just hold on one moment here. Jared, do you want to put your camera sideways? Is that possible?
How's this?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Excellent. I think our viewers can hear. I can hear you. You want to speak for a second? Oh, there you are.
Check.
Definitely. All right. So looks like we can indeed see you. Although there seems to be an issue. Just one second. Okay. It's kind of wanting to freeze on us, but I think we're good. Okay, we're golden. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Looks like you're out and about.
Yeah, just out in beautiful Burnaby Lake, right next to Ace Courier Services.
Nice. Did you pick up your bottles?
Picked up the bottles about 45 minutes ago.
Amazing.
They are currently cooling down in Burnaby Lake.
Nice. Okay, that's the way to be. All right. Well, so everybody, Jared Brownie, he's our, he was our master brewer. He was instrumental in the founding of the program. Really happy to have him on. And he's gone on a trip around the world, now hanging out in Vancouver for a bit. And who knows what the future holds, but you're currently, I believe you're roasting coffee.
That's correct.
Yeah.
These days over at Matchstick, and moved over to the dark side.
Literally, you were talking about what might be I mean, there's a big judgment call in specialty coffee when it comes to dark roast coffees, and you were just explaining that. And definitely Matchstick is known for their lighter roasts, but I guess you've been you've been experimenting.
They do have one dark roast, and it's to please most of the traditional coffee drinkers.
Okay.
And I quite like it.
Okay.
It's called the Bulldog, and I think it's, in terms of the roasting specifics, it takes more finesse to get a darker roast.
Okay.
And as far as I know, it could be my naivety at the point.
Fair enough.
But
Well, oftentimes people talk about the reverse. You'll have a dark roast set up that hits a particular flavor profile that masks the origin notes of the bean, and
this is true. I think you can roast dark and lose a lot of integrity quite easily, and I think the challenge is how to roast dark while still making it taste interesting and complex, and maybe even keep some of the origin, although transformed.
One second. I hate to interrupt. I just had a delivery come from the Stick in the Mud, so I'm live right now, Dave. But I just want to say hello. Well, it's actually kind of a delivery / pickup. I actually bought some beans from him, and he's grabbing some product for his cafe. Everybody should go check him out in Souk. Peace. Lovely. So he gave us a Huila from Colombia, or sorry, Huila origin, Colombian origin coffee. So that's exciting. Cool. Sorry. Okay. Just had to say a quick hi to him.
Nice.
Thank you, Sunny. But we're back. Sorry, you were explaining a little bit about how dark roasts are actually potentially interesting, which is, again, counterculture for what's going on right now. But can you repeat what you were just saying? I know you already told the viewers, but totally missed that with the drop.
I think the specifics or the point is more towards how it's roasted, and the challenges when you're roasting it, and this has to do mostly with the temperature curves and how those change as the roast progresses or evolves. And the longer it goes on for, the more volatile that temperature curve can be. And so I think it takes more finesse in that sense to roast a dark roast well, according to some generally accepted roasting theory.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess people do. I mean, it's been there's a reason why it was popular for a really long time, and it still is quite a popular way to interact with roasting your beans, right? Is to take them on that sort of deeper development, a little bit further past second crack, etc. So it's yeah.
And now maybe the question, to bring it back to tea, as it is also sometimes a roasted product. Would you say the same would apply, that a darker roasted tea loses its origin characteristics?
Well, we were actually just talking about that in episode 5 a little bit. We have a charcoal roasted oolong, the Yashishang, and I believe you had an opportunity to taste those 2 roast profiles as well. And
amazing,
right? And it was just I think that the darker roast is delicious. But what's interesting is that it doesn't. I mean, in the world of tea, I found that greater degradation of the leaf structure via the hotter temperatures actually meant that the leaves weren't as long-lived for multiple steeps. So I wasn't able to get as much out of them. Also, a lovely fellow who used to travel here from Chicago. He's now in Switzerland, but he's that black matter scientist that you've met, David.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he would say that the roast hides the character, but it's always there. So even something like a Tiguanyin or a Sencha, where you don't really think about roast profiles because it's not so apparent. They're not like a brown leaf, but there is a firing process that happens, right? The finished firing process that happens, and there's a caramelization of sugars, and how far you take that is definitely going to impact the flavor. And so definitely find that it. When we were in Hoshinomura, for example, one of the people we were working with, he would say, "Oh, that company, leave out company name. They take their senchas too dark, and you can't really taste the tea," he would say. And I thought that was awesome. And then the shiraore or the karigane that we get, sometimes it's roasted quite dark, and you can taste it. Like, it's not a visual dark; it's a taste, like a more intense roasty quality or nutty quality that happens. And
in fact, I've been picking that up even in not quite as intense, but a very pleasant, mild roasty toastiness in the sencha from Hoshinomura.
There's right now at Matchstick they're serving our shiraore, I believe. And that
is that right?
Yeah, and before that was the sencha. So I don't know which one you're drinking right now.
Believe it or not, we still have the sencha.
Okay.
And, the teas haven't been moving very fast in these times. I think.
Yeah, that's true across the board, actually.
I think part of it is that most customers no longer can see the menu, and a lot of people don't even know we're serving more than just pour overs, which is the only menu we have at the front door.
I'm noticing that with a lot of places that are doing this takeaway service, that chais, London fogs, even matcha is selling just fine, but our loose teas without a menu, just people don't even know that they're there. So it is definitely a lot slower across the board, not just at Matchstick. And it's interesting. Yeah, I guess it has to do with that presentation for sure.
It's my hopes that loose leaf teas will take a bigger place in North America and Canada, the way coffee has.
Well, what's interesting is on our webpage we've actually seen a surgence of purchasing of the higher quality teas. So I don't know what that means, but loose tea on our webpage has been doing quite well. Yeah.
I know of some public figures who have advocated loose leaf teas, and I wonder if it might be some runoff or side effect from that.
It's very possible. Yeah. You know, on just bringing it back to the roast conversation in tea,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that would sort of connect to what we're drinking today is just that I found that the more roasted teas actually, what's interesting is that roasty quality is something that seems to make it through the intensity of fermentation and lagering that we do here. So that at the end of the day, when we're drinking our teas, that you can really identify when you're working with a roasted
Mm.
selection. It would be at a
Mm.
hojicha or a Phoenix Mountain Oolong or whatever it may be. There's that definitely that quality that pushes through.
I wonder if it's the specific volatility of the molecules or perhaps how we've evolved to sense them. I imagine being able to detect roasted, fiery aroma would have been favorable, evolutionarily speaking.
Yeah, it would make sense. Yeah, and then for those who don't know, or for our viewers, we love to. JV and I often go into tangents about science, or including
Hey,
scientific
Sherri
perspective.
Anne.
Oh, Sherri Anne's joined us from Sister Speak. Awesome, out on the porch.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, Sherri Anne, you've met Jared Brownie, Sherri Anne.
Indeed.
I didn't know it. I don't know if you know this, Jared, but Sister Speak does a live performance every Thursday at noon via her Instagram and Patreon. And then she often invites me on her show to just talk a little bit. And today we were talking about the kombucha. And then she comes onto the show, on my show afterwards. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know where I'll be next Thursday at noon.
Awesome. You also do one. I guess you also it's three access points. There's Instagram, Patreon, and Facebook Live. Is that right?
Yes. There are three. Instagram at Sister Speak Music, Facebook.com/Sister Speak, and Patreon.com/.
And awesome. And Sherri Anne was it was a pretty emotional show just because she's grappling with, as we all are, some of the intensity. I was explaining at the beginning of the show here, just interacting with the violence in the United States, from police to black people and racialized peoples, and just trying to understand how to deal with that, because it's something that we definitely have in our society in Canada as well. And yeah, we were just having a pretty deep conversation about that, and
Yeah.
so, and then right there's the stuffed animals she was hanging out with for the show, which are actually mine. They're 37 years old.
Nice.
So, but Sherri Anne, just for our viewers, JV and I were talking a little bit about how like the human being can pick up on roasted qualities in teas, but there was one thing that I wanted to mention to everybody, and I wasn't able to bring it up before JV joined us. I call Jared Brownie JV, viewers, because he's got the same first name as me, so that's it just comes out. But yeah, everybody knows him as Jared and me as Jared normally, but I call him JV.
Double Jareds.
Double Jareds.
Jared squared.
And Jared squared. But Sherri Anne, there was a Zoom sort of educational opportunity for people that are interested. Could you talk about that for a moment?
Yes. So if anybody would like to join, this Sunday, one of my best friends in New York has been doing anti-Black racism workshops for years now, and he's taking the time to host one this weekend on Sunday with another lady named Robin. So my friend Daryl, he's doing it. He's going through a lot right now with everything, and the fact that he's even putting the workshop on is pretty amazing. So it's a pay what you can. We actually have a bunch of people that signed up from the stream, which is really neat. And I'll be taking it. It's Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Sunday at 4 p.m. I'll put it in the chat. Sunday at 4 p.m. What is the URL or link?
It's thinkolio.org.
Think Olio. So think and then OLIO.
Yes.
Okay.
Thinkolio.org, and then you can scroll to the June 7th one.
Okay. June 7th.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
So I've been looking online for a workshop to do, and he just announced it a couple days ago. So that'll be really special.
Okay, awesome. No, I'm really interested in. I encourage everybody who can to check this out and get involved and get educated. I think it's a really important thing that we all should be doing. So, yeah.
Yes.
I don't really know how to segue back to things, but maybe get JV's thoughts on this whole mess. It's a difficult conversation, but I told you in advance I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I wasn't sure if you had anything you'd like to bring into the discussion.
Yeah, it is extremely challenging time, and I think conversations like these are what needs to happen. Education and raising awareness to affect change. So it's my hopes that we will see that change, and I think participating to make that happen is on my mind at the moment.
You spent a lot of time in the United States growing up, right? So I'm sure that it hits pretty close to home as well. Just scenes that you see in New York, not necessarily just this intensity we're experiencing now, but even it being the epicenter of COVID-19.
Yeah.
A lot of world tension.
It brings to mind the times I've had in the States, and I've always wondered about moving back to the States, and I think now more than ever, it's something to really consider the current state of affairs, and really try to bring about some goodness in these challenging times. I think if there is one thing that can be said about challenges, is that they often do lead to development one way or another, and I hope to see something good come way of that.
I'm I well said, and I agree, and I'm just I find I'm at a loss for words a lot. I haven't really been talking about this much in my social media, etc., just because I don't quite know how to frame it. So
Likewise.
Yeah, it's difficult to frame because it's something that's been going on for so many centuries, and I think even just having the conversation in the first place is a big start.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we need to go with it. Is just I felt that way again. I was talking about Wet'suwet'en a little bit and how important it is to participate in just making sure that you're trying to get educated, trying to understand the situation, try not to make random just not guesses but like broad generalizations about what's going on, because really we're not there, we don't really know, but to still try to understand and do the best you can to get involved if that's possible for you in your space at that time, right? So
as having spent half my life in each country, I do feel a pretty big responsibility to do something in both countries. It's a lot of work. It's pretty intense to see what's happening. Yeah, exactly. To in some of your cities where you have like really special memories. But also, you know, it's tough down there. It's tough here, depending on how you grow up.
Yeah.
And it's just so much work to do, but like we can do it. That's the cool thing. Like we have actually so many things in the works right now that we know are effective, and there's a lot to create still, and a lot to dismantle to create new. So I think that the process has been started for a while, and it needs to accelerate like rapidly.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's some really good and valid points. I think it's good to keep hope, and it's just good to keep active, and try and push forward some healthy change, because we definitely need it.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to add there, JV, or should I be going towards this kombucha? What's the...
No, I think just taking a moment to acknowledge and to consider the situation might be where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too, is just at a place of just introspection.
Yeah. Where are you right now, JV?
At Burnaby Lake. Got a nice little scene of geese that just showed up in front of me.
Wow. I'm in the Okanagan.
Oh,
and
sweet.
It's quite beautiful. Let's see if there's quite the garden forming in the backyard.
That's got to be nice this time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does her sessions outside on the back porch, so I don't know how long that will be possible as the weather turns later in the fall, but you might not be there. You might be, who knows, you might be on the island.
That's right.
You know, or traveling the world again. Things might lighten up, who knows, but maybe not likely this year. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough knowing.
JV actually went to pick up the bottles because we weren't able to get him his kombucha in time due to misunderstanding with the courier, and so he went to the courier himself, and he's actually right near them, and he grabbed the bottles, and so he's gonna be he's gonna be able to join us for today.
Yeah, it worked out.
Do you have all three of the two big bottles and the little bottle there, Sherri Anne?
I do.
Yeah, I sure do.
JV too? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you have them too? So
nearby in the lake. Should I grab one in particular?
Why don't we start? Do you guys want to start young, like one of the younger ones, or do you want to start with a really well developed one?
Well, maybe I don't know.
Let's
Let's
go with wine theory here, JV, and let's start drier, so that we can take, so it doesn't taste this. So we're gonna go with the one without a label on it. So this is a Tiguan Yin. This was bottled in January. It's batch number 1117, and it is
1117.
1117.
Just a moment here.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to grab one thing real quick. I wanted to actually grab my headphones. Is there time?
Yeah, for sure. Go and grab your headphones.
I'll just go grab that right now. Okay.
And so, just cracking that open. And our bottles always, we love bottling in beer bottles. One of the things, I don't know if our viewers know this, that we try to bring to the table is a focus on brewing where we're not adding flavors after the fact. So for us, we're not against secondary ferments at all, but which is when you would add botanicals to the ferment a little bit later on rather than when you first start the fermentation, so that you can protect some of the volatile oils, etc. Yeah, we find that that by not adding anything to it, we are able to. I'm gonna turn off the audio here for a moment on there. There you go. Okay. By not adding anything to it, we're able to focus more on the ingredients that we're putting into it in the first place. And we always have a tea from a feature farm that we switch up, and then we have the honey from Frederick's honeybee farm in Cedar, BC, and then we use that as our fermentation for bringing out some pretty awesome flavors. And the process, oh, it's pretty windy over there. That's funny.
Sorry.
No worries.
Is it me?
No, I don't think so. I think it's JV. He's kind of running
How's
around.
this?
Oh, I think it's good. You want to put your camera sideways? Is that
Yeah, right.
awesome?
Do you have any
Okay.
cups?
Lovely. Okay, awesome. So you got, is it chilled? We doing okay?
It is cool. I'd say about 50
Okay.
Celsius.
And you got it open there?
Got it open. Had to
Is it
find
dirty?
a piece of stick.
Okay. Okay. I think we're
Which one's dirty?
um.
Oh, it was dirty?
So let's Sherri Anne, you got a bottle opener?
Yes.
Glass?
So we're doing 1127?
We're doing 1117.
Oh,
one-
I have
the one
one here
without-
that's unlabeled.
Yeah, that's the one. On the cap, it should have the batch number on the cap.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm coming back.
No
I
worries.
just had to go grab it. I didn't want to
No worries.
make anyone. Didn't want to
Okay.
make anyone dizzy.
No worries. Okay.
So, what do I do after I open it? Because it's so much. Well, how long will it last?
You can put it into a storage jar if you want to, like a mason jar.
Oh, okay.
Or and then when you open it up, it'll still pop with the carbon dioxide. Keep it in the fridge. You can also.
Ah!
Oh no.
I think in the mail it got a little shaken up.
Yeah, fair. Or maybe not cooled down quite yet. Did yours foam at all there, JV?
A tad, but not quite as much. So they've been kind of just chilling for a bit.
Nice. Okay. So let's
Oh, I didn't chill mine this morning.
cheers up, guys.
Ah.
Lovely. Okay.
How exciting.
I love these ones. This is to me like
Yum.
yeah. It's like a
It's been a while.
yeah. That's like a perfect. I sent one to
Wow.
you because I wanted you to taste what I consider to be ideal, where it has that like a really. I don't know if the viewers can see. I'll hold that up to the camera for them, and obviously you guys can see in your own glass. But there's just such a beautiful clarity to the liquid.
Wow.
And the carbonation is, I mean, obviously for you, it's a little bit more intense than what I'm experiencing.
It's actually the carbonation. It's interesting because it's actually not overly carbonated at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's very pleasant. I'd say very well
Wow.
balanced on a lot of fronts.
It's definitely drier than the batch that I've been drinking. I've been drinking the what have I been drinking? I've been drinking the batch 1124 featuring the crimson tea
Okay. Yeah, that's
by Mr. Takaki.
1114. You said
1124.
1124. Okay. Yeah. So I sent another one to you, the 1126, which is the same tea but a different batch.
Ah, okay. Because this one definitely tastes drier and less sweet. It's awesome. It's nice that they're actually a little different.
Right.
I wonder if it has fermented a little bit longer on the way to the Okanagan.
Probably.
Ah.
Yeah. And I mean, for everybody watching, how it works, how fermentation works when you don't pasteurize, is that the yeast will actually convert the sugars into carbon dioxide. In the closed environment, there will also be a small increase in alcohol, and that's normal for anything that has sugar and yeast in it. So even orange juice will have sometimes close to little under 1%, or apples that you pick from the supermarket, them sitting on the counter will convert sugars into alcohol, and you know it's in everything. It's just how science works. We get ours measured though because we need to be child friendly and under the legal limit. There's small percentages in there. But the more you keep it out of the fridge, the more it's going to carbonate as well. And when you convert sugars, that means you get a drier product. But one of the things you can do is know that carbon dioxide, when it's warmer than 3 degrees or 4 degrees centigrade, is going to hang out in the top of the bottle. And then when you chill it, it will actually sink into the liquid. and it takes a little bit of time for it to re-find itself inside of the liquid. But once you've done that, when you clip them open, they won't foam everywhere.
Should I be chilling it right now with the other one as we talk?
I mean, we're gonna be drinking it pretty fast here, so I think it's it's okay. But just be ready for it to be fairly foamy. So maybe have a bowl or something that you can open it over.
Because I didn't get a chance. It just came in the mail this morning. Thank you so much. I haven't chilled it.
Fair enough. Yeah. So that's why we chill. I wish I'd gotten it to you guys sooner. But
it is a living product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is alive. And I mean, there's some beautiful probiotic qualities to kombucha that makes it really popular with people that are trying to bring a little bit of more of that into their life.
Oh, we're getting word that your voice is a little bit pretty low compared to ours, like very faint, apparently.
Mine?
Yes, suddenly.
Huh. Let me see. Okay. Huh.
Maybe it changed when I plugged in my headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Should I take them out again?
Sorry?
Should I take them out again?
Sure.
Are you noticing a difference behind the scenes?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that would happen, but yeah, I can actually notice that by you unplugging your microphone there, that my microphone increases quite considerably.
Okay, so then I'll just leave it unplugged here in the back.
Yeah. Okay. There's something to test for next show is how to improve on the audio quality with all of the viewers plugged in. I hope everybody can hear us a little bit better now, or hear me a little bit better. I've also adjusted my microphone. Hopefully that's better. Okay. So, perfection to me is when we have a little bit of noticeable sweetness in the bottle. I have that kind of creamy texture to the carbon dioxide. This is featuring the Tiguan Yin, and the Tiguan Yin is a beautiful oolong from Anzi in China. And I feel that when I work with oolongs in particular, they seem to have a lot of the flavors are still present when we finish the fermentation. It really helps to taste the tea as well. I love to just drink the tea that we've used in the fermentation and see what qualities I can pick up in the finished ferment. But what are you guys tasting when you drink this?
It almost tastes like a little bit like white wine to me.
Okay. Yeah, that kind
I
of.
get some. Oh.
Go ahead.
Some pear quality.
Definitely pear.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Pear, white wine. There's a really gentle. It's got a really gentle tea flavor. I can taste the Tiguan Yin. It's present in sort of a proteiny, or like a.
Wow.
Like you can taste, like we talked about umami in previous episodes. Like that seems to be present, and more heightened than most.
I get a yeast note from it, which is quite pleasant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's the yeast that brings out such incredible complexity of flavor, I think. So it's just when there's too much of it, right? And maybe actually that's a good time to open up this bottle. And we can drink them side by side and be talking about them at the same time.
Which one are you thinking?
Is that the other bomber?
Yeah, the other bomber. So for our viewers, we just released the 650. We've always been doing the 330s. So we have Papa Bear and Baby Bear now available. So it's pretty exciting.
Cool. Are we doing the batch 1127 now?
We are doing batch number 1127. That's correct.
Okay.
And I have next to zero carbonation because this was bottled on May 22nd. How are we doing over there?
Just fishing it from the lake.
Awesome. Love it. When in doubt, when you don't have a refrigerator.
You put it in the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think I'm gonna put the.
It's really nice. Very, very different, but a similar carbonation, which is interesting. I would have expected this one to be a lot less.
Would you mind putting this one in the fridge for a minute?
What's that?
Oh, sorry. Oh, I have. Sorry, I was just asking the secret behind the scenes guest. The fridge is really close to here, so thank
Nice.
you
Nice.
for the other one, because this one. I didn't get to pull this one off at all, and it's a little warm outside, so this one I'm trying not to let it bubble too much over. I didn't realize that, so a lot of it has to do with the heat of not chilling it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and that can happen. You know, if you buy even a kombucha from the supermarket, I've heard stories of people, you know, putting it in their bag and like bringing it into a movie theater, and it's warm out, and then they open it up and make this lovely mess. And this is even with commercial products that this can happen.
Oh, I've had it happen even actually. Okay, one time from the supermarket.
When I say commercial, I mean like bigger.
One time in the supermarket, I got one, and it literally exploded for like 5 minutes, and it just sprayed everywhere. And it was for that.
Yeah, one of our... sorry, go ahead, JV.
Another factor is any kind of vibration or shaking tends to encourage yeast growth. So sometimes these refrigerators that kind of hum along, I think might play a role in speeding up that carbonation.
Right. So like the more stable your fridge is, the better. How'd that one do?
Success. I opened it very, very slowly, and it didn't explode.
Excellent. Okay. So that's our new size there, the 650s. Great for sharing in your bubble.
Oh, here comes the wind.
Okay. So are we tasting a similar carbonation?
Wow.
So
I'm tasting more of I'm definitely tasting more of the crimson tea in this one.
Okay. How about you?
Love it.
How about you, JV?
In terms of carbonation, it's pretty similar to the first one.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. It's interesting that one was bottled in January and one was bottled in May, and yet they're a similar carbonation.
Yeah, I'm feeling that too.
Huh.
I definitely taste more of a green tea. Is there a green tea at all here?
There's there's two teas in this one. One is the Kombucha Satsuyu, which is a crimson tea from Japan, and one is a Bashan, which is a roasted oolong from Phoenix Mountain in China.
Oolong, I love my oolong.
Yeah, so it's we were talking about this. I was trying to understand why my ferments with the Kombucha Satsuyu were a little bit more aggressive than my ferments with the Bashan, and I think it comes back to what the growers are doing in terms of what they're putting into the soil, and I think that Mr. Takaki, he's going to put a little bit more, not chemical nitrogen, but naturally occurring products that are going to produce more nitrogen. And a lot of farmers in China don't even put fertilizer onto the roots of the plants at all. So, you know, a very different way of working with tea. JV, you want to speak on what if we put a compostable material into the roots of the plants that we're working with, what that might do for creating nitrogen, and how that might affect a fermentation?
Yeah. As far as I know, I'm no expert on this, but all cells, all biological organisms need proteins to build themselves up, and the key component in these proteins is nitrogen. Nitrogen is very abundant in the atmosphere, but given its chemical structure, the tightness of its bond or the strength of its bond to itself, it's hard to sequester or acquire this nitrogen from the atmosphere. So we often have manure and fertilizer and compost that, among other things, contains nitrogen in other forms more readily biologically available that the plants can utilize to form their own amino acids and their own proteins and their own structures.
That makes sense. So it's just it helps with, it's an important building block of life, and if we add it in a way that's just going to give them a lot easier access to it, then they're going to build that much stronger, perhaps, is the way of looking at it. That's why you get these kind of larger plants out of compost, like when you're delivering compost and fertilizer. It's because they just have easier access to these building blocks.
As far as I know, I've also heard that carbon dioxide plays a big role in the growth of a plant in terms of how big it gets. In fact, the carbon dioxide from the air is what accounts for the most of the mass of a tree, for instance.
Interesting.
So, next time you look at a big tree, realize that it's been produced from tons upon tons of CO2.
Makes sense, because they need CO2 to build themselves up. And we're creating a little bit too much of that right now, aren't we, as a society?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's interesting that how much CO2 is released when a tree dies.
When it dies.
So that would make sense. Like when it's cut down, the carbon sinks release a lot of CO2 as far as I'm aware.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Huh.
So chemically, that's releasing what helps it grow. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's likely that we'll see plant life growing at an accelerated rate as the atmosphere continues to become richer in CO2.
Right.
So there are these counterbalances that happen, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. I know, that makes sense. Huh. I've just been noticing. Well, back to the conversation actually about nitrogen, because I think it relates to just like there's the global impact of all the CO2 that we're producing and how that's going to affect plants, and I think it is definitely affecting how even tea tastes. We were talking last week a little bit at the beginning of the show about what happens when we say we're harvesting longjing or creating longjing, and how in eastern Zhejiang province, when there was less air pollution, it was considered the best place to source your longjing. And now western Zhejiang, this is still a little bit controversial, but it's said that it can produce a higher quality product because it doesn't have the same level of air pollution. So it would be interesting to taste what tea tasted like before we had all of this happening. And then when it comes to nitrogen, Japanese teas often have a little bit more compost or fertilizers added to them. I wonder if that sort of increased sort of building block for flavors, for plants to build themselves up, also impact fermentation. Sort of the theory I have in my head is you just have, it's almost like you get the botanical and it's still spinning with all of this building block potential, and then you get a situation where when you use it to ferment with, you're just gonna make that fermentation a little bit more aggressive. Would that make sense?
I think so. I think we, through observation, have noticed that some ferments will go faster than others.
Uh-huh.
And on that...
Oh, looks like we lost you there. Oh, we lost him. Okay, so let's see if we can. So. Oh, there he is. Oh,
there you are.
Hello.
Am I back?
You're back. So, sorry, you're gonna have to start over there. We lost you.
Okay. I think we have noticed that some ferments have gone faster than others.
Mm-hmm.
And just like plants, the Scobie needs these nitrogen sources for growth.
Right.
And it makes sense that if you start out with a tea that has more of this nutrient available, that the Scobie will grow more readily from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like compost for the Scobie.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what it feels like. It's just kind of linking a little bit later down the chain. So, yeah. Well, on that note, why don't we taste one that's basically all Japanese. We can open up this batch, the smaller one, the batch number 1126, if that works for everybody.
Just grab it.
Okay, awesome.
Woohoo! Chilled it for like 4 minutes, so we'll see the difference.
Okay. I'm a little bit
Yeah,
distracted
that
today.
temperature really heated up here.
I want to apologize to the viewers about the guest scene is a little bit haphazard today. There seems to be some issue with the video with you guys freezing, and so if I seem a little bit distracted, it's me kind of fixing that. But
Oh, really?
yeah. But anyways, I think I got it under control.
It might be due to my connection.
Perhaps, but
in the park.
Yeah, but it's possible. I think that's why we lost you there for a moment. But I think it's more to do with my side of things. Is that one a little bit more foamy?
It's got a healthy foam,
Okay.
a fine foam.
You know, I don't have anything on mine, and it's the exact same batch. I pulled them from the same box and everything.
Yeah.
Well, temperature is a huge factor for
Yeah. Clearly.
CO2 solubility.
But that is definitely a lot more visible bubbles, even in total refrigeration on my end.
Oh, that's super nice.
Yeah, but this one's definitely the most bubbly of the three in terms of, well, obviously hasn't been chilled.
You know, this tastes like is it reminds me of you know how we sometimes taste that vitamin quality, JV, like kind of like vitamins you'd have as a kid or something, kind of sugary vitamins.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
But in a good way, you know.
Oh yeah! Wow, this one's I really like.
Look at that.
I like how the darker teas have a little bit more inherent sweetness to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
We seem to be able to hold up a little bit more, hey, in the fermentation, and I feel like we've kind of settled on working mostly with crimson teas and oolongs, whereas initially we did some experiments with green teas, and we call our product Kombucha Jun because, I mean, arguably they're the same thing. Jun enthusiasts are going to tell you about, you know, the legend that they're very distinct and different, although they're related. But I think on a scientific level, they're essentially the same thing. They've just been grown to work with a different type of sugar, and you can convert kombucha scobies to enjoy honey. It's just a process that you have to go through to get it to be able to do that. And that's true with anything. You can actually, there's a really good book on fermentation, the Noma book of fermentation. They talk about how even working with garlic instead of tea, garlic is very antimicrobial, so the SCOBY doesn't do very well at first. But if you keep, you put the SCOBY back with tea, and then you bring it over to garlic again, and then back to something it likes, and then back to garlic again, it starts to get used to the garlic, and it starts to be able to work with the garlic, and then you're okay. And so I think the same thing happens with, maybe it's not used to the honey sugar for its fermentation, but if you go... Well, can
you still there?
I'm still here, but you guys can't see me anymore, right?
No.
That's right.
Okay, so we're gonna have to roll this way, but
Okay.
my viewers can see me, but the camera that I had connecting you guys to me, I don't know what's going on with our video conferencing software today, but it's been quite interesting. So so we'll just rock and roll. If you can hear me, I think we're gonna be okay. You can see each other?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. And I'm just kind of like a giant logo.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, where was I? What was I talking about?
You're a giant cat.
I am now a giant cat.
I think training the culture, the
Yeah,
Scobie.
thank you. Yeah. So I was just talking about training the Scobie, and I think that that kombucha, those some things it enjoys too much. It's kind of like a plant that you know we've talked in other shows, past shows, about how when you encourage the growth of the when a tea plant grows too quickly, it actually doesn't have as beautiful flavors as when it grows slower. And fermentation seems to be the same thing. When just because it looks like it loves it and it's just bubbling along real fast, and you've created a temperature where it just motors forward. Oh, do I still have you guys? I think it looks like I lost you.
Yep.
Okay, good, fantastic. Even though it looks like it motors forward and it looks great and all that stuff, it doesn't necessarily taste good. You don't get that really beautiful complexity of flavor. And to slow it down ends up being able to bring out way better tea flavor. We found that with fermentation too, that our general fermentation time is about 7 days. Sometimes it goes as long as 14, and it's those really long ferments that actually taste really good. But sometimes when you go too long, you develop acidity, but you don't develop the yeast very well, or you get too much yeast and not enough bacteria. So there's just kind of this game in fermentation of balance, or at least with kombucha, where we're trying to go as slow as we can, but have a good balance of keeping the bacteria happy and the yeast happy to produce good flavors. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So green.
I think.
Go ahead.
To talk about the Scobie a little bit more, similar to how there are cultures, the Scobie is always changing, and depending on the environment that it's in, you might have a different makeup of the number of microorganisms that comprise the Scobie.
Mm-hmm.
So our Scobie is likely to be different than someone else's Scobie in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, 20 years ago, the Scobies in Russia would have been different than the Scobies 100 years ago in China, per se.
Right.
And so I think it's important to keep in mind that, like all biological creatures, they're always evolving and changing, especially when you talk about microorganisms. The generation time is pretty short. And so to talk about the difference between kombucha and Jun Scobies,
Mm-hmm.
I think might be missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be more accurate to look at the individual organisms in a given culture.
Right. And how they're all so unique and different, right? And adapting and changing.
Interesting.
Oh, did we lose him again?
I think we did.
Uh-oh. JV, you still there? Oh, what joy today, hey?
Well, hey, so the green tea one, I have a special affinity for the ones that are mixed with oolong or green tea personally.
Uh-huh.
I don't see anybody else really making kombucha with
green.
Green or oolong tea, and why is that?
I think it's JV, we lost you there for the end of what you were saying, but you're back now. We can hear the birds chirping again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we were just talking about why people don't use green tea. I was actually trying to touch on that there, and I kind of didn't finish my thought. Was just that green teas make the Scobie really happy, but too happy, and it gets really excited and goes. And what we found is that it might be just because there's more of the food that it loves, and it kind of overwhelms the ferment, and you get this really maybe it's
harsh.
it's a really almost like a what did we compare it to before? Like a malt vinegar flavor that comes out, generally speaking, unless we finish it pretty quick. Like if we do a 3-day ferment. But if we do a 3-day ferment, the Scobie doesn't have that much time to properly coalesce and bring out really good flavors. And as a result, we find that we're just, I assume that there's just a way of working with it that we don't know yet that would allow us to work with it. And maybe some tests that we've done recently where we add the tea because you can do all you need is sugar, yeast, and the bacteria for the ferment to go forward. So you don't even need the tea, really. It just helps with the flavor structure. So we could add the tea a little bit later on in the game, and perhaps that would help slow down that effect that it has on the fermentation itself.
Okay.
Yeah, just some experiments to try anyway. Did I lose everybody?
No, I'm here. JV's disappeared though.
Okay, all right. I guess he just has a connection that's meaning that he's in again and off again a bit. But that's to be understood. He's gone all the way out to Burnaby Lake to pick up the kombucha, so he's on.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a really beautiful spot too.
Yeah, no, it really is. So yeah, the honey though is what makes it's honey and green tea that makes Jun. If you're fermenting with honey instead of sugar, and you're fermenting with, there he is, he's back again. Okay.
Am I back?
You're back, yeah. And
just to make a comparison to cheese, I think there are phases in Scobie's growth where you'll have some groups of bacteria or organisms that set up the conditions which allow for the next phase or group to start growing and fermenting. Mm-hmm. And I think the timing of the fermentation, for instance, with the green teas, shortening it to 3 days, I think you don't see, let's say, a suitable evolution of these phases. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you might have some parts out of balance with the whole process. And I think it really does pay to consider on a more, I'd say, microscopic level, mm-hmm. what's happening over the course of a fermentation. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be quite similar to literature I found on sauerkraut, for instance, where over, let's say, a 2-week period, you have many different groups or phases that inhabit and set up the conditions for the next phase, similar to how an ecological site will over time grow from, let's say, a forest fire, where one set of plants, for instance, kind of sets up the stage for the next.
Right. And we talk about the different trees that will grow and then die off to allow for the next phase of trees to grow and die off, and how that starting point is important, but the one dying off prepares the ground for the next one to succeed. And that's
right.
It's important to go through that full process to get a fuller completion of the cycle.
Right, and of course we're crafting the characteristics that we want. We wouldn't want it to go too long as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because otherwise it gets, well, with kombucha, from a flavor perspective, when it goes too long, it gets quite sour. And one of the things we often hear about our kombucha is that, oh wow, it's not as sour as I think of kombucha to be. And I think that's been on purpose, a very careful control of residual sugars, which isn't as accurate because of the murkiness of the liquid, but we use a Brix meter, and then the pH meter to see where we're at with the acidity. And that helps us to control it a little bit. And I think a huge thing, though, that's probably a major factor in our program is that we try, and again, we're working with slowing things down. We have a big belief in simplicity and taking time for things to develop, and I think it's so that we can allow for that full production of different yeasts and bacteria that are going to make for a successful ferment. And it's all very subjective on a certain level, because flavor, when you get to a certain point, but there's some very visual parts to the whole thing as well, and some very like rock solid, like you really need to achieve, like you can see when things aren't going well, right? Like it's very obvious, the health of the ferment. It's very visually apparent, so it's quite interesting. But Sherri Anne, you brought up about green tea again, and I hope that helps to understand. Is it just makes the ferment a little bit too aggressive for it to complete its full cycle. Perhaps
I like the idea of it being really happy.
yeah, I want it to be happy too. Maybe if we used less green tea, or I'm sure there's a way to do it. I've had some delicious ferments using green tea, and it's just for us, it's a learning process. We found that our process seems to work really well with oolongs and crimson teas, and so that's
And
what we've been
oolong's
doing.
kind of a mix, right?
Well, they're their own genre. They're just withered a little bit. After harvest, you're not allowing the propyl oxidase enzyme, the PPO enzyme, to brown the leaves as much before you do the process called kill green, where you pass the leaves through a hot enough temperature to kill that enzyme. And then when you lock in that enzyme with green teas, they kill the enzyme really fast, like within 23 hours, so that it stays really green. It's kind of almost like when you quickly cook kale or something, you get this like locking in of that vibrant green color, if that makes sense.
One quick note about the usage of different teas. I think for the home user, from what I've heard and found, is that the fermentation is often too slow. And so I think it may be better in that scenario for someone to use a green tea per se.
Yes. Yeah, and I think a lot of reasons though why it's slow is warmth. I think we're often making these ferments in a house, and it might be that it's just too cool. Like it really makes a big difference if your temperature is sitting around 21 degrees, and if you can maintain that, it seems to do really well. But again, Noma calls for like 24, 25 degrees centigrade. So, different. I think your Scobie gets used to the environment that you build for it over time. But there is such thing as too cold, where it goes into a state of hibernation, and it's not going to really do much of anything, right? But yeah, in those sort of more difficult environments, try and give it something a little bit more aggressive, like a green tea, and I think that's going to definitely make a difference. Yeah. Makes sense.
I just a small note on all this. I really like how your labels are easy to pull off, because then you can put it on the mason jar when you transfer it. Some people's labels are so hard to pull off.
Well, that's not on purpose, but that's great. I'm glad that it's.
Well, I mean, they're very durable, and they also they don't leave that crazy mark,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
it's pretty
awesome.
rad.
All right, guys. Well, it looks like it's time to wrap things up a bit here. I just wanted to get your final thoughts before we end the show today. So we had the 3 different kombucha. We had the Kocha Asatsuyu, we had the Kocha Asatsuyu and Bashan, and then we had the Tiguanyin. The final 2 that we had are almost back to back in terms of the weeks they were bottled. One was bottled on the 16th, and one was on the 22nd. So. Yeah, just on the session itself. Maybe we can start with you, JV.
Well, I think in terms of the kombucha, it's great to be tasting the booch again. Awesome. I missed it dearly. I think my preference goes to the last one we tried.
Oh, interesting.
The Kocha.
Awesome.
And maybe it has some connection with how I'm tending towards more darkly roasted coffee. I think there's a kind of comforting, less harshness about it, as opposed to the more raw form.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. It is tasting really a lot nicer than I remembered. So maybe it was... I remember one we had a really hard time with. I think I was sending you pictures of the Scobie not developing properly. And I think that just giving it some time without any tea was totally the right move, and that's really set things back up again. So
nice.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Sherri Anne, Sister Speak.
Well, I'm completely obsessed with your kombucha, and if I can, am I correct to say that you both spent years developing this together?
You were correct to say that. I think we crossed the 1,000 batch finish line together, didn't we? We did.
Glad to say.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a product of trial and error for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you greatly, because It's unbelievable. I've never tasted a kombucha like this in my life. It tastes so good. It doesn't have the vinegary taste to it. I still don't understand fully how I think it's in the fermenting process that you're able to avoid that vinegary taste, and instead of, oh yeah, it's a very careful process, obviously you're doing. And I do have a affinity for the second one, the Wulong, 50% Wulong, and 50% crimson, which says to you. I love them all. Really, I just can't even believe there are three that taste this delicious. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, that's lovely to hear. Yeah, no, it's definitely been a trial and error. JV came in here as a university student, and we asked him to. He said, "Hey, can I get some tea?" And we said, "Hey, we'll give you some tea. Just bring us some of your kombucha that you make." And then he started. It was so good. We asked him to continue making it, and then him and I would have a lot of back and forth, and years of him going to school and late night brewing sessions, and, and so it's been an interesting journey for sure. And I think that I'm really happy, and a lot of our customers are really happy with the direction it's gone and where it is right now, and hopefully we can continue to put out some of the good stuff. So good to hear you guys like it. For my part, I really like the Tiguanyin the best, so it's kind of awesome that we all chose a different batch. So
we all had a different one.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. All right, well, thank you very much for coming on the show today, guys. Really appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Your time, and
thank you.
And then thank you, JV, for bumping up your appearance to appear today instead of we had you scheduled for a couple weeks from now. So really appreciate you being flexible like that and coming on today.
It worked.
Awesome. And biking down to pick up your kombucha. So awesome.
Not too shabby. And the geese say hello.
Excellent. It decided. Oh, there they are. Okay.
Oh, cute. Oh. I don't want to talk because I don't know if you'll see it.
There we go. It's not. I wonder. There we go. Okay, we got it. We got it live. Fantastic. Yes. Hello, geese. All right. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll wrap things up. And appreciate you coming on very much. And if anybody wants to check out JV, or if he wants to go check out some of the coffees that are coming out of Matchstick, that's a good place to check his work right now. And Sherri Anne's at Sister Speak, or patreon.com/sisterspeak if you want to sign up for her Patreon. You can check her out at sisterspeakmusic.com. Some really you're putting your new album, your live album, on to Spotify pretty quick here, is what I understood from the...
Yes, the plan is June, and in the next week or two, so it'll be on Spotify. It's already the CD is out and the final record, and we're gonna release it.
Lovely.
This month.
Yeah, and it sounds amazing. So I'm really excited for you. So, thank you both for coming on, and I hope you have a really awesome end of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we just lost JP. That's too bad. So at any rate, I'm sure he'll come back for his goodbyes. But thank you very much, Sherri Anne. I always appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye, Jared.
See ya.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. All right. See you later.
Hello,
Bye.
goodbye.
Hello, goodbye. Take care, guys. Bye. Okay. So that was an interesting technological challenge today, but we made it through in one piece. Had an opportunity to drink 3 different batches of kombucha today. Appreciate your patience as we were kind of working through the glitches there. And really enjoyed what we put out. Enjoyed the conversation. Good to have Jared Brownie on the show and Sister Speak. Again, you can check her out at patreon.com/sisterspeak. You can check out Jared Brownie's work at Matchstick, and you can always check out our teas. You can buy our kombucha actually online. If you go to jagasilk.com and you go to the store, you can grab a 12-pack. It's a little bit pricey because the shipping is part of it, but hopefully you can make it happen. We're excited to have you back next week. Next week's guest, we're actually going to have Adam Creek join us. Adam Creek is an Olympic gold medalist. He's a rower, or was a rower for Team Canada when they won the Olympics in Beijing in 2008, I believe. So that's pretty cool. He's always been drinking our matcha for quite some time, so we'll be the matcha we were going to have today, we're instead going to have next week. It's the Okamidori First Flush by Fujioka. If you want to go check it out, you can join in on the fun. So thank you very much, and I hope you have yourselves a fantastic weekend. We'll see you next week, 1 p.m. Thursday. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.